Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing 3 fall cards that I made with this new A7 pop-up tree wraparound die set. This set includes some really pretty sunflowers, some pumpkins, and you can build a very pretty fall scene with it, but you can obviously use it for Halloween and for any season of the year. I think it would be really cool to put flowers on the tree for spring, and I can envision a lot of pretty winterscapes with this pop-up as well. I'm also using some older products, the Barn Animals and the A7 pop-up barn die set from a couple years ago. And then from our latest Halloween release, I am going to pull in the Pumpkin Kitties die set. So for my first card, I am going to layer up 2 of these tree frames together to make them more sturdy. This is lightweight craft cardstock. I normally would use heavyweight, but I didn't have any. So I just glued 2 of them back to back. And I'm going to pull in some Distress Oxide inks throughout this entire video. I use them to add some shading and brighter, vibrant colors in the backgrounds. And I feel like autumn cards in general lend themselves really nicely to pretty ink blends. So I do the most amount of ink blending during the fall season, but in this case I wanted to add a little bit of shading to my trees. This is a pretty flat design with just the brown, so I am adding frayed burlap and vintage photo to the bottom of the trees. My barn ends up covering this, so this was completely unnecessary, but I did want to leave it in because you can see how pretty it is if you leave the entire panel as the focal point. If you just add a simple sunflower or a little bit of, or a few pumpkins at the bottom, that will create a really pretty flat card design. The die includes this wraparound fence, and I cut it from the same craft cardstock, and I'm blending the same distress inks again to add some shading. And you can swap out the wraparounds. So if you're making a Halloween card with this die, you can use the fence from the Haunted House wraparound. If you want more of a spring design with grass at the bottom, you can use the spring fence and the grass from the A7 pop-up trellis die set. All of the wraparounds are the same size, and I think it's fun that you can mix and match, and we plan to bring out a few more of these. There will be one also in the winter collection. So these are very simple to get put together. All you do is add your double-sided tape to the glue tabs on the left and right side. You reinforce the score lines, and that will wrap your fence around the back of your tree panel. So you can see I'm just pressing each of those glue tabs behind the tree frame, and if you want to cover those glue tabs, you can just glue another frame on top. I'm going to end up completely closing this with an ink blended background, so it didn't really matter, but if you wanted to leave it open, you would just glue another frame on the back. So these are some of the older products I'm pulling in, the Barn Animals and the A7 pop-up barn die set. I'm not going to be creating a pop-up, but I am going to use the base of that die just to create a little barn for my scene. And I'm first going to paper piece my animals. So I cut the pig from a dark pink and a light pink. From the light pink pig, I am cutting his ears, his snout, and his tail and gluing those onto the dark pink pig so that there's just 2 colors on him. Then the die set includes all the layering pieces for the animals. So for the chicken, I cut the base from light yellow, his wing from dark yellow, as well as his face, and then I cut his beak and his feet from orange cardstock. If you don't want to deal with the small itty bitty pieces from this set, you can also just cut multiples of the base layer and fussy cut the images you want. So in this case, that's what I did for the chicken. But for the cow, I did just cut the spots and his face elements from the layering dies that are in the set. Now, I did teach a class at some of the trade shows this year using the barn and the animals, so a lot of you got this set for free for taking the class, so I think it's fun that I'm able to show you another idea you can use with those barn animals. There's 6 animals in the set, so I just chose the pig, chicken, and cow, but you can definitely add all of the animals if you want to decorate the front and the back of the pop-up. I am using a fine liner for the eyes of the animals. You can also use a fine liner for the hooves. I'm going to paper piece my cow now. I went for a traditional black and white cow, cut the base from white, and then all of the spots and the face details from black. Also the tip of his tail I cut from black. I'm using the tip of my needle to pick up my layering pieces since they are so small. And here's my bowl of tiny die cuts. I put them all together so that I don't lose them. You can see in that, that little tray, there was also some leaves that are included in the A7 pop-up tree die set. I will use those leaves on my second card design. For the cow, I'm giving her a pink snout and pink udders. So I'm just adding those. And then I did die cut all of the layering pieces for the barn from white cardstock. I did double them up so that they're a little bit more dimensional. This barn is currently too wide for the card, so I am going to trim it on each side. And here I'm just kind of laying out and seeing what this might look like. I decided to add 2 bridges to this card so that I could add the barn in the back, my cow in the middle, and then my pig is going to go along the fence line. So here I am just trimming the barn to be a little bit more narrow, just freehand cutting this, not worrying too much about it being perfect. Pulling in the Fired Brick Distress ink to add some shading to this piece. In the end, you don't really see it because my white frames cover the majority of the blending, but it does look really nice. And here are my frames, and I actually had so many of these left over from kitting my barn class. And next year we're going to be teaching 5 brand new pop-up classes. And if you haven't taken one of our classes yet, we always offer at least a $20 die in each class. We do door prizes. It's really fun. It's my favorite part about going to the different shows. And next year we're hoping to hit more states and also go to pretty much every show we went to last year. And I know a lot of you who met me recently at the shows have subscribed to the Scrappy Tales YouTube channel recently, and that's very exciting to see my channel grow. I know a lot of you have kind of fallen down the rabbit hole that are my video tutorials, and some of you have been requesting some like slowed down real-time videos. So I am going to be trying to go live at least once or twice a month, each time showcasing a pop-up, so that you can obviously always watch my fast-forwarded videos once you kind of get the hang of how the pop-ups are made. But if you ever really want to see a slowed down tutorial, I do suggest going over to my channel, hitting the live section, and watching some of my older lives, because almost all of them are pop-up tutorials. Alright, so I'm just going to add the door now. You can see I double layered these pieces. I'm not going to add the little rectangles on the sides like I normally do, just because I made it so narrow. But you can see how cute that looks in the background. So the die set comes with bridges. All of the wraparounds have some sort of bridge. Usually it's grass, but in this pop-up I opted for just a simple little hillscape And I'm going to use 2 bridges in here. The first one I'm going to add all the way to the back, pretty high up. And that's where my barn is going to go. So if you decide to leave the fence open like I am, you can see the green tabs. If you want to avoid that, you can do what I did in card 2 and just cover the back of the fences, the openings. But in this case, it didn't really matter because I'm adding 2 bridges and to me it just looks like grass. So I didn't care too much for this particular card. All right, so I'm just seeing how that's going to look. I'll go ahead and stick my barn onto the bridge. So you can still see those trees at the top. And at first I was going to leave the card open, but I did decide the next day that I wanted another pop of yellow, and I felt like a yellow sky was going to be really pretty for this card. So you'll see that I end up changing it, but I do think it looks pretty open as well. So now I'm going to add the other bridge right in front of it. And this is the bridge where my cow is going to stand. And then in the front, I'm going to add my pig, and then my chicken will be glued to the left side of my barn. Decided to add some grass at the bottom of the fence, and this is the grass wraparound from the trellis pop-up set. I opted to just cut the grass because I had already wrapped around the fence. So I'm going to add the grass to the front and also to the sides. So I'm going to save those little pieces that I just trimmed. Go ahead and add my pig. My cow and my chicken. All right. Then I decided I was going to add a single sunflower and a couple pumpkins. These are included in the tree pop-up. I like the little pop of orange and the pop of yellow from the sunflower. The die also includes the little stems for the pumpkins. For my second card, I didn't bother with these stems. I just used a brown marker to color them in. And here's my sunflower. I opted for the one that's kind of growing towards the left side. And the die includes the greenery, the floral, and then the flower center. These sunflowers are super pretty. So I had the yellow on the sunflower and on the chicken, so that's when I decided, yeah, I do want to add some yellow to the sky. But first I'm going to glue my remaining grass pieces. All right, so now I'm taking that tree frame again and I'm going to cut it from a dark brown cardstock. I thought it'd be cool to have the lighter brown trees with the darker arched frame around it. So I'm taking 2 papers of this dark brown. It's lightweight, and I have the Anna Griffin die cut machine, so I can actually cut 2 lightweight pieces in one go, which is pretty unheard of. This machine is a workhorse. I absolutely love it and would recommend it. Definitely worth the money. I have loved it so much, and it's great for mass producing my card kits. So I plan to buy more machines so that multiple people can help me kit next year. Anyway, I'm going to cut the trees from the center of the frame, and I'm just going to use the frame. I will keep the trees for my second card design. I'm going to add glue to the frame, and I should have done this before adding the barn and the animals, but it was sort of an afterthought, so I'm just going to kind of wiggle it in there. And then with the second frame, I'm going to glue it to the back side. That was during the time I thought I wasn't going to add a background to this. I thought I was going to leave it open. And again, I'm so torn on whether I should have left it open or not. Let me know what you guys think, but I do really like how the yellow ended up looking on this card. Alright, and then you can see how this card folds flat. I thought I was done at this point, but the next day I decided to make my background. So I'm using mustard seed and I believe wild honey, but wild honey wasn't contrasting enough, so I'm going to use crackling campfire instead. And crackling campfire is more of an orangey red. To me, it's like the perfect burnt orange color. And it's probably one of my new favorite inks. I just got this one. Alright, so I'm going to pull in my card, and I really did not need to ink blend too much because it only shows that small portion at the top, but I did want to cover the entire back just in case I wanted to write a message on the back of this. And a helpful tip I have with ink blending, because I'm not very good at it, I don't do it very often, I like to start with a light background color that I know is going to be within the same shade or color family as the inks that I'm using. So that light yellow cardstock is acting as my third color. So I'm using less ink and I'm getting, in my opinion, a better blend by starting with the same color for my background as my inks. So you'll see I do that with my other two card designs as well. So I went ahead and glued it, and I'm just going to trim around it. And that will finish off my first card design. And I do want to mention that this pop-up, as well as the other two new fall sets that came out on Monday, they are bundled together, and the 10% off discount for the bundle ends tonight. So I will have the bundle link down below. It's a really great deal. And I will also have video tutorials on those other two products in the bundle. I'm also going to be working on the card kit tomorrow. So hopefully I will have a 10 card 1 kit video out by Friday or Saturday. So for my second design, I'm going for another craft base for my trees. Layered two together since this is lightweight cardstock. And instead of using inks this time, I used a brown Copic marker. Again, a lot of this gets covered, but I figured I would show you that it's an easy way to add some interest to your tree background. For the fence, I'm going with another craft fence to match, and I usually add double-sided tape when I wrap the fence around, but this time I just went with glue. So I'm going to glue one glue tab on the right side of the tree panel, and then I'll wrap around the other side and glue the tab down. And that is how it stands up. It is like the simplest pop-up to put together. Alright, now I'm going to my bin of die cuts, and I'm picking out the pumpkin cluster also included in the pop-up die set, as well as pretty much all of the cats from the Halloween or Pumpkin Kitties die set. The set includes some cats that are sitting on jack-o'-lanterns, but I'm just going to use the cats and have them sit on regular pumpkins from the tree die set. And I decided to create a Siamese cat forest, so I'm giving all of these cats Siamese markings. I am creating chocolate points and seal points. So I have a light brown cat base. I'm adding the markings with the Copic marker. And then I also cut some cream ones, and I will create the same markings with the same marker. I think I pull in a second marker to kind of blend out this darker brown on the lighter cardstock so that it's a little less harsh. But for my seal points, this brown color didn't need a transition marker. So I love how easy it is to use these cats to customize them to your recipient's cat. Many of you probably know that I do have 2 Siamese, and I also have a black and white cat that Taylor actually created a black and white spotted cat in our recent live. So if you'd like to see these cards made into Halloween designs and see them made in real time, I encourage you to check out our latest live. For the eyes of the cats, I'm using a fine liner for the really small ones. And for the larger cats that have the layering pieces for their eyes, I'm going to glue the eyes down. I cut them from white, and then I'll use a blue Copic marker to color them in because Siamese cats have blue eyes. And then for the pupils, I will bring back my fine liner. I think there are die cuts for the pupils, but they're so tiny. It's honestly easier to just color them in. But here's that blue marker. And I end up using blue in the background of my card. So it kind of tied the eye color back in, which was fun. We will also have an inspiration hop featuring the fall items and the new card kit next Friday. So if you want to see some flat card designs from the design team, you can follow me on Instagram. We have hops all the time. There will be giveaways. And I'm also giving away the 3 new fall sets in my latest mini product showcase video. That's the last one I posted before this one. So if you haven't yet, go watch the video and leave a comment to enter yourself to win, and I will announce a winner sometime next week. For my pumpkins, I am going to add some Copic shading at the base of them. You can see I use 3 shades of orange for my pumpkins, and every pumpkin is separate in the die, so you can create this cluster with different colored pumpkins, which is really cute. Here's the brown marker that I'm adding to the stems. And for this one, I decided to back the fence with some cream cardstock. This kind of brightens the card a bit and pulls in the color from the Siamese cats. Alright, and then I'm going to add my pumpkins to the front. I'm also going to grab a couple extra pumpkins that I will again add shading to with my markers, and I'm going to use those on my bridges, or on my single bridge actually. I am also going to add a green layer to the back so that I could add even more pumpkins and cats to this. I debated on adding some cats to the trees, but opted to keep the cats on the ground and add leaves instead to the trees. So you can see this Copic shading technique is really fast and easy, but it definitely steps up the die cuts. I like to do this when there's only like 1 layer to a die cut, there's no intricate pieces. And there are several members on my design team that will shade their die cuts with Copic markers, and it's really pretty. All right, so I'm adding this tall Siamese to the large pumpkin on the bridge there. I'm going to add this laying down kitty to the front of the fence. And then there's a cat that just has his face and his paws, and it looks like he's like trying to sit up on something. So I decided to add that style cat to the left's pumpkin on the bridge. And then these are the trees that we cut from our last card. Remember, we used the frame, but we were left with the trees. I layered them together so that they're sturdy. And I'm going to add these two trees to the left and right side of my bridge behind the cats. I think this added a lot of interest to this card design. Definitely added a lot of volume towards the top of the design, and it kind of looks like a tunnel or a true forest. All right, and then here's where I decide that I want to add some more green to the very back of the card so that there's a little more color, and then I can add, of course, some more pumpkins. So I just used a piece of green scrap to add to the back. This will get covered by my background piece. All right, and then I'm just gonna fill in with some more pumpkins and some more cats. I added this one to the front, but ended up using the same cat in the back. So you'll see that I'll take that one off and replace it with a different cat. I opted for the one that's kind of laying down. He was perfectly sized for that pumpkin on the front. Then I added the sitting one in the very back, and I think that's it. I think I used a total of 5 cats. And here is my background. I'm going to add some Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink to the bottom of it to add some shading. And I think adding the little bit of blue at the bottom adds a lot to the design. All right, then I'll go ahead and glue my pop-up to the blue panel and trim around it. And the back will be blue and will give me an opportunity to write a message. Here's where I decide that pop-up blue was really nice. I also want to incorporate some of the colors that are on the bottom of the card towards the top. So I have my leaves that I cut from red, orange, yellow, and dark brown. And I'm just going to glue them to the tips of the branches on the background and also the ones that are glued to the bridge. I think this added a lot of interest. They're almost like embellishments. They're like that finishing touch on a card. And this is one of my favorites. I almost want to keep this one. Some of the cards I've been making recently have been like my all-time favorite cards this year. And this is a Siamese forest, so it really screams me. But I will say several of my cards now feature Siamese cats, and people have a great time trying to locate hidden cats on my cards at the shows that I attend. Okay, so I am also adding a couple leaves to the bottom of the fence, and some of them I added to the blue background so it looked like they were kind of falling. And these leaves are included in the tree die set. I think these would be beautiful in green for the summer. I think a design for each season would be really cool. But that completes my second card design. And my third one is a little bit choppy because I did film this one mainly for TikTok. So if you want to see an uninterrupted version of this design, check out my TikTok and my Instagram. I create 2-minute clips with footage that's usually like an hour long, which is kind of cool. and I can put music behind it. So for this, the only different thing that I did is instead of layering the 2 shades of brown together to make it more sturdy, I opted to flip the top one backwards so that there were more branches at the top and there were 2 shades of brown. I cut the fence from white cardstock and wrapped it around the same way we have been. Added grass to the bottom from the trellis die set, and then I added my bridge in the center. I want this card to feature mainly sunflowers, so I have 5 sunflowers that I cut from the tree pop-up. I did add shading to the petals with a dark yellow Copic marker, and then here you can see I'm adding a dark brown marker to the center of the flowers. I have another cluster of pumpkins that I created the same way as I did for the second card. This time I'm adding it to the center bridge, and you can see that that's like the perfect size. And then I'm going to add 2 sunflowers to the fence, 2 behind the pumpkins, and then I will have 1 that will be glued onto the background. I love how the trees look at the top. I debated back and forth if I should add more leaves to this one, but I think because I opted for a red to orange to yellow background transition, I felt like that was enough, and my leaves would have been the same color as the background, so I'm not sure if it really would have stood out. Anyway, I'm using crackling campfire again, festive berries at the bottom, and I think that's it. Okay, I also added fired brick, actually. So it's fired brick, candied apple, and that's it, I think. And I started with a dark yellow base, and so I didn't even need to pull in a yellow ink for this. I just let the paper kind of shine through at the top. This one's definitely my favorite blended background. I think it turned out really nice. So I glued the pop-up to my background, and I'm just going to trim the excess off. And then for the sentiment, I thought about using the Blessed, which the Blessed has been featured a lot recently. It didn't land on this card either, so instead I used a white heat embossed sentiment from this sunflower stamp that came out a few years ago. This one was illustrated by my grandma, and it's one of my favorite stamp sets that we have. And what's fun is all of the sentiments are related to sunshine, which is very fitting for sunflowers. So I chose Sending You Sunshine, white heat embossed it on the background. I do wish I would have stamped it a little bit higher up, but I still think it's pretty. And that's it. I kept the card very simple. This would be a fun one to mass produce for Thanksgiving. And that wraps up all 3 card designs that I made with the new A7 pop-up tree die set. I will have everything I used linked down below. I also will have a coordinating blog if you'd like to see some close-up photos. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!